The story begins with a mystery. Why, after decades in the entertainment business, does Joyce DeWitt, one of television's most beloved comedic actresses, still refuse to watch a single episode from 1977? To answer that, we must journey back to where it all began. Before the bright lights of Hollywood, and before the laughter of millions filled American living rooms. Born Joyce Ann DeWitt on April 23, 1949. In Wheeling, West Virginia, she was the second of 4 children in a tight-knit Catholic family. Her father, Paul DeWitt, worked for a utilities company, while her mother, Norma, devoted herself to raising the children. Both parents came from Italian and Irish backgrounds, and their blend of cultures shaped Joyce's early identity. The DeWitts moved soon after Joyce's birth, settling in Speedway, Indiana, a suburb of Indianapolis, where Joyce would spend most of her formative years. Growing up, Joyce wasn't immediately drawn to the spotlight. She was shy, bookish, and deeply connected to her faith, but she was also imaginative, with a playful sense of humor that often entertained her siblings. Family friends recall how she could mimic voices, slip into characters, and transform an ordinary gathering into an impromptu performance. Though she didn't yet realize it, the seeds of her future career were quietly taking root. Tragedy touched her early life as well. Her parents struggled financially, and the DeWitts faced many of the challenges of a working-class Midwestern family. Joyce often spoke of how those years instilled in her a deep sense of discipline, humility, and empathy. She also learned resilience, qualities that would later define both her career and personal journey. By the time Joyce entered high school, her natural charisma could no longer be contained. Encouraged by a drama teacher who recognized her talent, she began appearing in school plays. It was on the modest stage of Speedway High School that she first experienced the thrill of connecting with an audience. She discovered that acting wasn't simply about pretending, it was about truth, vulnerability, and communication. Her fascination with theater only deepened when she attended Ball State University. Initially considering a career in law or government service, Joyce changed direction after winning praise in campus productions. She earned a bachelor's degree in theater, then took a bold leap few of her peers dared to attempt. She applied to the University of California, Los Angeles. There, at the prestigious UCLA School of Theater, Film and Television, she pursued a master's degree in acting. In Los Angeles, Joyce found herself surrounded by ambitious young performers, each chasing the same dream. For the first time, she began to imagine a life on stage and screen as more than just a dream. She immersed herself in classical training, memorizing Shakespeare, learning the discipline of voice and movement, and sharpening her comedic instincts. This was the crucible where Joyce DeWitt, the professional actress, was forged. Though she could not yet foresee it, her journey would soon place her at the heart of one of the most iconic sitcoms in American television history. A show that would define her career, challenge her relationships, and leave behind one episode she would never watch. Like so many aspiring performers, Joyce DeWitt began her professional career with small, unglamorous roles. She appeared in stage productions, commercials, and took bit parts wherever she could find them. Her first credited television appearance came in the mid-1970s with a guest role on Beretta, the gritty crime drama starring Robert Blake. Though her screen time was brief, it gave her valuable exposure to the realities of television production. But life in Los Angeles wasn't easy. Joyce worked as a secretary between acting gigs, paying rent and tuition while going to auditions that often ended in rejection. Friends remember her determination during these years. She was disciplined, focused, and unwilling to let discouragement stop her. Her big break arrived in 1976, when producers at ABC were casting a new sitcom originally titled Three's Company. Based on the British series Man About the House, it revolved around a man sharing an apartment with 2 women, with comedy arising from misunderstandings, gender politics, and the strict moral codes of the time. Producers auditioned dozens of actresses for the role of Janet Wood, a sharp, grounded florist who would serve as the sensible counterpart to her roommates. When Joyce DeWitt entered the room, she immediately stood out. With her expressive eyes, sharp timing, and ability to balance sincerity with humor, she embodied Janet perfectly. Paired alongside John Ritter as Jack Tripper and Suzanne Summers as Chrissy Snow, the chemistry was undeniable. When Three's Company premiered in March 1977, it quickly became a cultural phenomenon. Audiences loved the slapstick humor, the daring subject matter, and the dynamic among the three leads. Critics praised Ritter's physical comedy, Summers' bubbly charm, and DeWitt's role as the voice of reason who anchored the chaos. Joyce's portrayal of Janet made her a household name almost overnight. Throughout the late 1970s and early 1980s, Three's Company dominated ratings. The cast won a People's Choice Award for Favorite New TV Comedy Program, and Ritter received both an Emmy and a Golden Globe. While Joyce never won a major award for her performance, she was consistently recognized as essential to the show's success. She brought warmth and relatability, allowing viewers to see themselves in Janet's frustrations and triumphs. But fame came with challenges. Behind the scenes, tensions simmered. Reports of disputes over salary and contracts strained the relationships between the cast and producers. Suzanne Summers' very public contract battle in 1980 created a fissure among the co-stars. Joyce, loyal to Ritter, distanced herself from Summers during that period. For Joyce, who valued professionalism and fairness, the turmoil was disillusioning. Typecasting also became an obstacle. While audiences adored her as Janet, casting directors often struggled to see her in other roles. She guest-starred on shows like Finder of Lost Loves and The Love Boat, but the shadow of Three's Company loomed large. Yet, in those early years, the triumph was undeniable. Joyce DeWitt had risen from a small town in Indiana to the heart of American pop culture, proving herself as one of television's most enduring comedic talents. But as her star rose, so too did the pressures that would soon test her both personally and professionally. Though the public knew Joyce DeWitt best as Janet Wood, off-screen she was private, introspective, and deeply protective of her personal life. Unlike many of her Hollywood contemporaries, Joyce did not seek the spotlight outside of her work. This quiet reserve has fueled decades of speculation about her relationships. Unlike some stars, Joyce never married. Over the years, rumors linked her to fellow actors, producers, and even businessmen, but she consistently deflected questions about romance. In interviews, she explained that her devotion to her craft often came first, and that she valued privacy above publicity. This decision set her apart in an era when celebrity relationships often became tabloid fodder. One of her most enduring friendships was with John Ritter. Though tabloids occasionally speculated about a romance between them, both insisted they were close friends and colleagues. Their on-screen chemistry reflected their off-screen trust, and Joyce often credited Ritter with teaching her about comedic timing and generosity on set. His sudden death in 2003 devastated her, and she spoke of him with reverence for years afterward. In contrast, her relationship with Suzanne Summers was far more complicated. When Summers left Three's Company after her contract dispute, Joyce was caught in the middle. For more than 2 decades, the two actresses barely spoke. However, in 2012, during a televised interview on Summers' talk show, the pair reunited. Joyce tearfully explained how hurt she had been by the divisions, but also expressed forgiveness. Their reconciliation was one of the most poignant moments in the story of the show's legacy. Joyce's decision not to marry or have children has often been misunderstood by fans. She once remarked in an interview that while she admired people who built families, her path was different. She saw her art and her community work as her family. Indeed, after Three's Company, Joyce devoted significant time to philanthropy, working with organizations focused on homelessness and hunger relief. There were romances, Of course, though Joyce rarely confirmed them publicly, one of her more serious relationships reportedly occurred during her UCLA years, with a fellow drama student who encouraged her pursuit of acting. Later, during the height of Three's Company, she was linked to a producer, though the relationship ended quietly and amicably. What emerges is a portrait of a woman who valued connection but resisted defining herself through traditional domestic roles. For Joyce, intimacy was not measured in headlines or ceremonies, but in loyalty, friendship, and shared values. She remained close to her siblings and extended family, frequently visiting Indiana even during her busiest years. In the end, Joyce's personal life reflects the same qualities that defined her as Janet Wood: independence, resilience, and quiet strength. She may not have built a conventional family, but she built a life grounded in authenticity and compassion, qualities that endeared her to those who knew her best, and to the millions who invited her into their living rooms every week. Why does Joyce DeWitt still refuse to watch one particular episode of Three's Company, filmed in 1977? The episode in question is Roper's Niece, the fifth episode of the first season. On the surface, it seems like just another light-hearted sitcom entry. Jack, Janet, and Chrissy find themselves entangled in another misunderstanding, involving their landlords, Stanley and Helen Roper, and Stanley's visiting niece. But for Joyce, filming this episode was no laughing matter. During production, Joyce was still new to the world of television. The pilot had just been picked up, and the cast was under enormous pressure to deliver strong ratings. According to interviews she gave years later, Joyce felt unprepared and overwhelmed during the taping. She struggled with her lines, worried about her performance, and feared that she was letting the team down. But it wasn't just nerves. Behind the scenes, Joyce had her first major conflict with the director. Accounts suggest that the episode's director, known for his brusque style, was critical of Joyce's performance in front of the crew. Sensitive and still finding her footing, Joyce took the criticism deeply to heart. Though she completed the episode, she walked away from the experience shaken. After decades of speculation, Joyce eventually admitted in an interview, "That was the night I went home and cried myself to sleep. I thought maybe I wasn't good enough for television." For a young actress who had worked tirelessly to reach this point, the experience was devastating. In later seasons, Joyce would grow confident, polished, and admired as one of television's most reliable comedic performers. But that night in 1977 marked a wound she never quite forgot. The laughter from the live studio audience felt hollow, a reminder of her insecurities. To this day, Joyce has said she cannot bring herself to watch Roper's Niece. It represents not the joy of success, but the fear of failure. "It was my worst night on the show," she confessed, "and I don't need to relive it." This single episode, then, becomes symbolic. For fans, Three's Company is remembered for its humor, its charm, and its daring spirit. For Joyce, it is also a story of resilience. By facing her fears, pushing past her insecurities, and continuing to show up, she transformed what could have been a career-ending moment into the foundation of a 7-season triumph. In many ways, the episode she refuses to watch is also the episode that defined her. It taught her humility, perseverance, and strength, qualities that would shape not only her performance as Janet Wood, but her entire life. After Three's Company ended in 1984, Joyce DeWitt faced the challenge of redefining her career. Unlike some of her peers, she chose not to pursue a frantic series of high-profile roles. Instead, she returned to her roots in theater, appearing in regional productions and touring plays. Audiences who saw her on stage were often surprised by the depth of her dramatic abilities, reminding everyone that she was more than a sitcom star. Her later career included guest appearances on television, such as Sybil, Hope Island, and Living Single. She also appeared in independent films, though she never sought blockbuster fame. For Joyce, the joy of acting was not about celebrity. It was about connection, Honesty and craft. In 2009, Joyce faced an unexpected personal challenge when she was arrested for driving under the influence in California. She accepted responsibility, completed a rehabilitation program, and later spoke candidly about the incident as a wake-up call. Far from tarnishing her image, her honesty and humility resonated with fans who admired her ability to confront mistakes directly. Through the 2000s and 2010s, Joyce increasingly devoted her time to philanthropy. She supported organizations addressing homelessness, hunger, and the needs of underprivileged children. She also appeared at fan conventions, where she warmly greeted admirers who had grown up with Janet Wood. At these events, her humility shone through. She often insisted that the true magic of Three's Company was the way it brought people together. Though she largely stepped back from Hollywood, Joyce has remained active in theater, touring in productions of love letters, Miss Abigail's Guide to Dating, Mating and Marriage, and other works. Her stage presence continues to remind audiences of her versatility and dedication to her craft. Today, Joyce DeWitt lives a quieter life, far removed from the frenzy of the entertainment industry. She values her privacy, spending time with close friends and family, and occasionally granting interviews that reflect her wisdom and gratitude. Her legacy is secure. As Janet Wood, she helped redefine the role of women in sitcoms. Unlike the stereotypical ditzy blonde or the purely romantic lead, Janet was intelligent, assertive, and independent. She represented a generation of women navigating careers, friendships, and identity in a changing cultural landscape. The laughter of Three's Company still echoes through reruns, streaming services, and the memories of millions. For fans, the show is timeless. For Joyce, it is both a blessing and a burden. That single episode from 1977 remains unwatched, a private reminder of vulnerability. But perhaps it is also a testament to her humanity. That even stars struggle with doubt, and that greatness often emerges not from perfection, but from perseverance. In the end, Joyce DeWitt's story is not defined by one unwatched episode. It is defined by a career of resilience, a life of authenticity, and a legacy of laughter that endures. She remains, in every sense, the heart of Three's Company, the woman who brought warmth and wit to America's living rooms, and whose story reminds us that even in moments of doubt, the show and life must go on.